You are Locked On Clippers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome. Locked On Clippers Postcast in the middle of probably the craziest and busiest time of the year in the sports world. I am Pete Fox. We have all four of our postcasts going right now. Clippers just starting their season as they open Intuit Dome in Inglewood with a overtime loss to the Suns, 116-113. A fun game. Exciting at times, frustrating at times, interesting. There's lots to get into, lots to discuss. Of course, we also have Dodgers coming up in a couple of days to start the World Series. Trojans also play on Friday, so I'll be missing that game because I'll be doing the Dodgers there basically at the same time. And then we got Chargers going on right now as well. And before we get to the heart of this Clippers game, I need to answer some housekeeping questions from BC. It was a regular on all of my podcasts, so I appreciate him. He wanted to know why there's a Clippers postcast, but not a Lakers postcast. Well, a lot of it has to do with behind the scenes maneuvering, but you guys know Gavin, who also works here at Locked On. He does Angels, he does Rams, and he does Bruins. We've done quite a few crossovers with regard to baseball and football this year. Well, Gavin was going to do the Lakers, but then got a job working for the Clippers. So he thought he was going to have to do Clippers, and I was going to do Lakers. And then for whatever reason, he just decided that doing basketball at all would be a problem and a conflict with his other job working for the Clippers, and decided that he wasn't going to do it at all. So I have helped Locked On find a new guy that I've worked with for quite a while out of San Diego, who is a huge Lakers fan, goes by the name of Dave Palais. Also a huge Dodger fan. We initially discussed this option. They're getting really into the weeds here, BC, behind the scenes stuff. But Dave is going to join Locked On as the Lakers postcast host, and then we'll also do Dodgers with me over the summer during the dog days of baseball, filling in and hosting a couple of games, more than a couple. He'll host a handful of games, when I'm off or on vacation or sick or whatever. So the answer to your question is they are in the process of onboarding Dave, and he should be up and rolling here sooner before later. So Lakers postcast will be right around the corner. Fret not if you are not a Clippers fan, but feel comfortable that the Clippers postcast will be here as often as possible through this very, very busy time of the year. I, again, am Pete Fox, host of the Clippers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. I've been covering sports in LA dating back to 2007 for ESPN LA and NBC Sports Radio. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Clippers postcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, 116-113, the final tonight at the Intuit Dome, the opening game at Intuit Dome. And I really think the Intuit Dome was the center of the action tonight, was the star of the show. That place seems so freaking cool. I have to get over there ASAP for a game. So I'll begin that process for you guys. So I've been at this almost a year now and haven't done any games live from the stadiums or arenas. It's funny. Every team has a different feeling as to whether or not what we do here at Locked On is real. Some people feel like podcasting is, nobody watches, nobody pays attention. It's like blogging. Nobody cares. But other people understand that it's the wave of the future and it is real sports media. Done by people who have worked in sports media for a long time. Dodgers get it. I didn't make it to a Dodger game this year, but I will undoubtedly be there next year. I've heard the Chargers don't get it. They're a bit antiquated and old school, and they're like, yeah, that's not real media. So I would have to assume with Steve Ballmer as the owner, he gets it, or his people get it. So I can't wait to get over there because it just seems electric. What Steve Ballmer was trying to create was energy in the building, and you couldn't help but feel that energy and hear the noise and the excitement. I mean, and this is the first game of the year where the Clippers are trying to figure out who the heck they are. Kawhi Leonard, not surprisingly, hurt, sitting on the sideline as he usually does. So they're trying to work around that. Good news there is they're used to it. They're comfortable with Kawhi Leonard being out. But there's a bunch of new players on this team who I was getting acquainted with, like Kai Jones and Derek Jones Jr., Kevin Porter Jr. These dudes are young and energetic, and they have to be thriving on the energy that is coming from the fans at Intuit Dome. I mean, it is just palpable. You can feel it, and being there, it has to be tenfold greater and just way more intense. So very much excited about the future of the Clippers and Intuit Dome. And I guess I'm not surprised because, getting out of under the shadow of the Lakers at not Staples Center, but the hell's that place called now? Crypto.com. Getting their own world, their own environment, their own building, where they're the only occupants. Adam Silver was there talking tonight on the broadcast about how it's just special and cool to have a building like this modern, this technologically advanced, that is just for basketball. It's where they're going to host the Olympic basketball coming up next year. So that's cool. But it's designed for the fans to increase their experience at the game and obviously bring energy from the fans to the floor that the players can feel. There's so much about it that seems very, very cool. And Steve Ballmer's attention to detail and his energy is very, very apparent there. But when you look at the team on the floor, it's very different than it was last year. Mason Plumlee, not there, playing on the other team. And I'm sure a lot of you are fine with that. We would sit here night after night on the Clippers postcast last year, and people would just, every time Mason Plumlee got in the game, what is he doing in the game? Sit him down. There's no need for Mason Plumlee. He's terrible. Trade him, get rid of him, whatever. So I don't know that there was a lot of people supporting Mason Plumlee. Daniel Tice also gone. And I feel like as far as the guys that have taken over for those guys, mainly Kai Jones, or Sky Jones, as Brian Seaman calls him, is to me going to be a very big asset for the Clippers. He's young. He's 6'11". He plays with a ton of energy. He's nimble and fast and has a lot of skill. So I like that. I feel like I like this team in general. Obviously, the reason they lost this game was because they just didn't have enough depth down the stretch. This was a strange game for me from the perspective of how I feel about James Harden's performance. They gave him the Player of the Game nominee or award, which is, of course, sponsored by somebody. They did that in the third quarter. He had a huge third quarter, 16 points. At that point, he had 20 on the game, finished as the leading scorer for the Clippers with 29. So it's hard to say he had a bad game. But as I said in the notes, he was both an asset and a liability tonight, because early on, second quarter, the Clippers were just bad. And a lot of that was due to James Harden. His passing was, I mean, at first I thought it was kind of okay-ish is what I wrote. It was okay-ish. And then I upgraded that or downgraded that to kind of bad, sloppy. He was just sloppy and off. His shooting was bad. And more than anything, I really hate to say this because it wasn't this way all night, but James Harden is a step slow. I mean, he picked it up, obviously, hitting big threes in the third quarter, bringing the Clippers back into the game, and then giving them a 10-point lead with very important, crucial shots. But guess what? Down the stretch, sloppy turnovers, missed free throw. He makes that second free throw. They go back into a second overtime. So you can't really put it all on James Harden because nobody else was doing anything either. A lot of the other guys that were having good games. I mean, Terrence Mann fouled out. Norman Powell played 40 minutes, had 17 points, but was 1 of 7 from beyond the arc and missed easy shots, crucial time. So yeah, Harden was both good and bad. There were times where you're like, I mean, I guess go ahead, give the ball to Harden and let him shoot. But his, dribble drive Euro step was, it seemed like, it looked like it was so slow. It looked like I was doing a Euro step, and there was 3 or 4 steps in there. I was surprised that he wasn't getting called for traveling, but I wasn't surprised that the Suns were easily defending it. And of course, Harden's whining and complaining the whole time. That's a foul. No, it's not. Your Euro step is just, it's so antiquated. It was like, I'm trying to think of an analogy to make it, slow, Eastern European. I don't know. It was bad. But there were times late in the game where, he had clutch shots, clutch bucket at the free throw line. And then he made 2 free throws to tie the game. So there were times where he was viable and important to this game for the Clippers. But then, there was missed buzzer beaters, just a bad look. It was just bad look after bad look. I'm sorry, that little dribble drive action that he tried there right at the end of regulation was not a good look. I'm sorry. Hate to say it. I hate to come down on James Harden so early. The Clippers are going to have to find more scoring options late in the game. They became way too one-dimensional in overtime, relying on James Harden way too much, and that was the reason they came up short in this game, 116-113. I'm Pete Fox. This is the Clippers Postcast, the Locked On Clippers Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcast on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Clippers Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Where is the FanDuel thing? There it is. NFL fans, you can start the NFL season, which is already way started, with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you think there's a trend going in one direction or the other, you can check out the latest stats to verify your hunch or deny it. You can also view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you make your bets, where you can also make in-game live bets. So get started now at FanDuel.com with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. Download the FanDuel app wherever you find your apps, or go to their website, which is FanDuel.com. Clippers fall in their season and home opener at Intuit Dome, 116-113. Led by James Harden's 29 points, but that does not tell the whole story. Just 2 of 9 from beyond the arc. There was at least 1 or 2 times there in overtime where he pulled up and took a bad look at a 3 straight away, which turned into an easy bucket for the Suns. And it felt, I mean, look, he probably needed to be heat checked at that point because he was pretty hot, but that was not a good play at the time. They needed to move the ball, burn up some time. He took the shot way early in the shot clock. It just seemed very impatient for James Harden. And it also seemed like he wasn't really in the mood to try to move the ball. He was just like, I'm going to burn up the clock and then do one of my little step back threes and hopefully draw a foul, which of course he did there in overtime. Missed the second free throw, game over. So as we get to the bucket list for tonight, I was like, these are big buckets at the time for James Harden, but ultimately, we almost needed like a bucket list and an anti-bucket list where we talked about all the things that went wrong for the Clippers, especially from James Harden's perspective. But here are the top 5 or so important buckets for me on this game tonight. And in at number 5, Norman Powell hits the first 3 of the night, and I was, happy to see that because I like Norm Powell and I feel like he's a big part of the Clippers offense. And I thought at that point he would get rolling. Unfortunately, he did not. That was the only 3 he hit. I was also surprised to a certain extent they didn't make a bigger deal about the fact that it was the first 3 at Intuit Dome. Fortunately, I was happy that they just kind of said it's a 3 and that's his first one and the first one of the night, and they moved on. So that was right at the 7-minute mark. It made it 14-12. For number 4, Derek Jones Jr. hit a 3 in the third. That made it 49-46 Suns. The Clippers were down fairly big at the end of the first half. It was 47-39, 8 points. It's not terrible, but they were down. So to get back to within 3, it was encouraging. And then right after that, that was at the 10:37 mark. And then right after that, Derek Jones Jr. had a layup coming right after a steal, and that tied the game at 51. For number 3, Harden with a dribble drive and a foul, 3-point play at 5:42. That gave the Clippers a 57-55 lead. Then for number 2, Harden, that straightaway 3 that was good. It was part of 6 in a row for him at the 5:16 mark. It made it 60-55 Clippers. And for number 1, back-to-back lay-ins by Zubac. Not terribly exciting, but crucial buckets. These are the kind of things that Zubac does. He had a good night, ultimately fouled out. Finished, though, with 21, going 8 of 13 in 34 minutes and 5 of 8 from the line. So back-to-back lay-ins there, right around the 9-minute mark of the fourth quarter. So all in all, I felt like it was a fun game. It was exciting. There were times where I was frustrated. The second quarter was an abomination. It was just terrible. It was ironically, it's when they had Adam, the commissioner. What's his name? Adam. God, I just said it and I blanked. NBA Commissioner Stern. No, that's the old guy. It's Adam something. Give me a second. I'm looking it up because I'm drawing a blank. And no one's commenting tonight for whatever reason. Adam Silver. Thank you, Google. And no thanks to you guys, BC, in the comments. Yeah, they had Adam Silver on, so they weren't doing any play-by-play. Usually when they have a guest on in any sport, rarely do they do that in football. Baseball, they do it all the time. The play-by-play guy still tries to incorporate a little play-by-play. I was kind of surprised that Brian Seaman didn't do that. They just interviewed Adam Silver. Let the basketball go on. During that little 5 to 7 minute interview, the Clippers went into a huge slump. It was a 17-5 run for the Suns during that interview. They just absolutely fell apart. Everything stalled on offense, just bad looks, no ball movement. It was terrible. And it came, it was kind of keyed by James Harden's slow Euro step and bad looks and everything else. So fortunately, they were able to rebound from that. Again, at the half, it was 47-39 Suns. Norman Powell had a good first half with 11. James Harden did not. He was 2 of 11 with 4 points and 11 turnovers for the Suns, I believe. So the Clippers did a nice job there creating turnovers in the first half. The first quarter, aside from Zubac having a couple of fouls, they looked good. And again, I thought when the youngsters like Kai Jones was on the floor along with Derek Jones Jr. And Kevin Porter Jr., and it seemed like they did that for a good portion of the second quarter. Like the starters, Zubac, Harden, Powell, all those guys were resting for a good portion of the second quarter. But the youngsters, which included Nicholas Batum, he's obviously not a youngster, but that group had a ton of energy and it was very encouraging and exciting to see. I feel like Kai Jones is a definite upgrade on both Plumlee and Adam Tice. And Batum, it's nice to have him back on the roster. He was there early in the season and then was part of a trade. And so him coming back is a nice addition for the Clippers. He played 24 minutes, had just 2 points, but I feel like he will be a big factor in this Clipper team, whatever success they are to have this year. I don't know. I look at it and I say, the new building, the new energy, all of that is going to help the team that they are. They're not the third fiddle at crypto.com anymore, because that's what they were over there the entire time, because they came after, as far as importance at crypto.com, they came after the Kings. It was Lakers, obviously, way at the top. And then the Kings, and then the Clippers. So it's nice that they now have their own world and they can, be their own team and their own building and all of that stuff. So I feel like this is going to be good for them. As to what this team will become, I know they're going to be fun to watch. I don't know that they're going to be a contender of any kind. They'll be a playoff team, I think, with or without Kawhi being consistently on the floor. Now, again, that's another huge question mark as to what this team is going to do. I think it's pretty fair to say that Kawhi Leonard will be in and out all season, because that's what Kawhi Leonard does. I was talking to Kenyon Barner, who I do the Chargers postcast with after the Chargers game on Sunday. And he was has Kawhi Leonard played 50 games in a season? And I was like, I don't know. Let's look it up. And I did. And he played 60 some games last year. So he was there quite a bit. But of course, when it mattered and they needed him down the stretch of the regular season and into the playoffs, he wasn't there. And when he was there, he had missed so much time that he became a liability. So you just don't know what he's going to bring. You really don't. It's just a big, huge question mark. You just have to keep your fingers crossed that he provides something for this team this year and he's not a complete bust. But who knows? You just never know. I do know that he's got to get on the floor sooner before later, because we'll see, obviously, the longer he's out, the longer it takes him to get incorporated. So, maybe if he's going to miss a bunch of time, let's miss it all right now. Let's you take the next 3 months off. That way, long about February, maybe they can start incorporating him, getting him up to speed, and that'll keep him healthy towards the end of the season and into the postseason, in theory. Hopefully, who knows? Clippers fall tonight in their opener at Intuit Dome, 116-113. We'll get into a little bit of the box score for the Suns, who had a big night from Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. But their third scorer, Devin Booker, fouled out in 32 minutes. It wasn't quite a big night for him, but we'll get into their box score and a little bit more of a deep dive on the Clippers box score after the break. I'm Pete Fox. This is the Locked On Clippers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. And we appreciate you allowing us to be your source for your team every day. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Clippers postcast is brought to you by Game Time. Well, the World Series is right around the corner, and if you're looking to get tickets, they're not going to be cheap, but I tell you this, they will be as cheap as possible on Game Time. If you're curious, just off the top of your head, as I went to Game Time and looked a couple days ago. Top deck, upper deck, back row, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. Front row or second row right behind home plate, 40,000 plus, which is just mind-boggling. But Game Time gives you the options. Curated deals make it easier to find the best price on great seats. The super deal, seat views before you buy, so you can see what you're going to be seeing from your seat. And the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. They also have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Again, the seat views, you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and the lowest price guaranteed or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, gametime.com, and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code Locked On NBA, LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Well, there was lots to be encouraged about tonight, I think, with this Clipper game. Lots to feel like, hey, if you had maybe a negative vibe on what this season was going to be because Paul George is gone, Kawhi Leonard is hurt to start the season, Russell Westbrook is gone. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think that's going. Those three right there, two, Paul George and Russell Westbrook, I don't think those guys are going to be missed at all. I think they're going to be every bit as good as they were with them. And what was that? That was a first-round playoff exit. So I think this team, with or without Kawhi Leonard, is every bit as good as that team and can post a first-round playoff exit. So anything beyond that, I think is a win for this team this year. Are you surprised like I was to learn that Steve Ballmer has owned this team for 10 years? I'm like, holy cow. That it seems like a couple of years ago that whole big scandal went down. But I was looking back and I'm like, yeah, that's right when I left ESPN. And that's when that all went down. I can't believe it's been 10 years already. But look, this is going to be good for the Clippers to have their own building. Let's hope that Kawhi is back in there because there's no doubting or denying Kawhi's ability. I still think it's going to take a little bit of time to get, Harden kind of incorporated into this team a little bit more completely. He talked about having the preseason is helpful to him because he didn't have that last year when he joined the squad. So I thought at times he looked great. I also thought at times he was awful and a complete liability to this team. So let's hope he can, pick up some of the stuff that was bad, get rid of that and have a little bit more good, especially down the stretch. But the thing that is obvious is that they're going to need another guy late in the game when it's tight or into overtime that they didn't seem to have tonight. Again, I thought, Derrick Jones Jr. had a nice overtime, hit a big three, had a nice bucket right after the three, played defense. I mean, he is the real deal as far as I'm concerned. Young with a ton of energy. And I remember last year saying that, when the Clippers played like the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Minnesota Timberwolves, or there was a handful of teams, Sacramento, that these teams that have these young budding stars that are just filled with energy, and they just seemed old, right? And I feel like the Clippers have, for the most part, like James Harden still tonight at times looked old, and I don't know that that's ever going to go away. But maybe they just limit the looks for him a little bit. But if you don't have another ball handler and James Harden is on the floor, James Harden is going to hold on to the ball. Last year, I remember starting most postcasts with James Harden's passing was on point. His two-man game with Zubac was on point. Just sweet passes, finding Zubac. Tonight, those passes looked off. Now, look, it's the first game of the season, and they're going to get better without a doubt. But I thought that James Harden looked old at times. But the infusion of youth on this team was absolutely noticeable. Derrick Jones Jr., Kai Jones, Amir Coffey is not necessarily young. He was there last year, but looked good as well. What's Dunn's first name? Kevin Dunn. Liked his action a lot. I thought he played very well. Kevin Porter Jr. This is not, maybe Dunn's name is not Kevin. What is the K? Chris Dunn. So I think he's a nice addition to this team. So getting familiar with these guys, as I'm sure you are, but what I saw from those four guys, Porter, Dunn, Jones, and Jones, all seemed very positive and exciting for the future, that these guys can be a big part of what the Clippers have to offer. So we didn't see Bones Highland tonight, and a handful of other guys that I don't know at all. But Amir Coffey played 26 minutes, had 11 points, hit a big three. Kevin Porter just one bucket, 2 points, but played with a ton of energy. Kai Jones, 6 points in 13 minutes, going 3 of 5. As for the starters, Norman Powell had 17 over 40 minutes. Terrence Mann fouled out after just 27 minutes and 8 points. James Harden led the way with 29. As I said, Zubac had 21, and Derek Jones Jr. in 29 minutes, 5 of 6, only missed one basket, had 12 points. So the Clippers finished the night with just how many turnovers? Way too many. 21. I was looking at blocks. I'm like, they had one turnover? No, that can't be right. Blocks right next to turnovers. You got to be careful there. But yeah, it was sloppy. Harden had 8 of them, and a lot of those were at crucial times of the game. So they just have to clean things up. They got to become a tighter unit, and it's understandable this time of the year. As for what the Suns did, Kevin Durant played 44 minutes, 8 of 17, just 2 threes for 25 points to lead the way. Bradley Beal in 38 minutes had 4 threes, 8 of 12. Some crucial free throws late in the game, and 24 points on the night. But Devin Booker played 32, 5 of 9, 4 of 5 from the field, from beyond the arc, rather, for 15 points, and he fouled out. So that's, I'm sure, not what the Phoenix Suns were looking for under their new coach, Mike Budenholzer, who got fired as the Milwaukee coach mid-season last year. And then the Suns fired their coach, the former Lakers coach. What the heck's that guy's name? Something with a Z. Frank Vogel, who now works for the Dallas Mavericks in their front office. So it seems like it's a bit of an upgrade for them to get Mike Budenholzer. And the Clippers added Jeff Van Gundy as a defensive specialist on their coaching staff. So hopefully that improves their defense. I didn't see a ton of improvement, but I definitely saw more energy on defense, and that was good. It felt like all in all tonight was a game with a ton of energy. And rightfully so, opening a new building. The fans were geeked and excited and making a ton of noise. So the good news is that they're capable of playing defense. And let's hope that this energy from the fans continues, because there have been so many situations where the Clippers excitement at Clipper fans excitement at crypto.com kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy for the result of the game. You know, Clippers would have a nice lead against a team that was better than them with a better record. And you're thinking, all right, this is going to be a big win. And then they start to go to sleep and their defense gets sloppy and the fans fall asleep, and they, lo and behold, go on to lose the game because the fans didn't believe. And consequently, it felt at times like the players didn't believe. So if the fans are excited and fired up and they believe the Clippers can win, I feel like it's going to translate to more victories on the floor for the Clippers. But all in all, fun game. It looks like it's going to be a fun team. And we'll see what happens with Kawhi Leonard. Hopefully he gets back out there sooner before later, but I am not holding my breath. Clippers lose tonight in their home opener, 116-113. Off until Saturday. They play at 1:30 on Saturday. So I'm going to try to do that game before the Dodgers start. That would be game 2 of the World Series. So Saturday is it says 2:00 against the Nuggets in Denver, followed by Sunday against the Warriors in San Francisco. So we will talk on Saturday after this Clippers game, hopefully, but definitely Friday night, game 1 of the World Series, Dodgers and Yankees from Chavez Ravine. You regulars to the Dodgers postcast, make sure you join me there right after game 1 of the World Series. This has been the Locked On Clippers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you commenting. Have a good night, and we will talk again on Friday.